Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mind Your Fucking Business with your host, Jeffrey Klinsman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks, coming to you as always from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Fucking Business podcast, brought to you, of course, by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project. This is episode number 92, Noventa y Dos on the Spanish style. Appreciate you tuning in. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're picking up this episode, which we are taping today on Tuesday, November 8th. So everything is current as of that date, whenever you're listening to us. You can send us your questions at any time at mypbshow@gmail.com. And you can also DM us your questions, and we're going to get to some of them today, actually, at our Instagram page, rather, at Mind Your Fucking Business. Should be an easy name for you to remember. You can check the show on a variety of different platforms, so whichever you would like. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or Facebook. And there we go, and we're off and running. How are you?
I should be richer.
We're not leading with this. I could tell right away when I asked you the question. I knew where you wanted to go, and we're not leading with that topic.
Fine. I'm marvelous. It's always a great day in the MYPB
universe.
Episode
Good.
Universe.
I'm glad you're happy.
Yes.
So if you are a Ranger fan,
Yes.
this was not a very good week. We were on Thursday.
Yeah.
We kind of like mixed schedule. We're back to our Tuesday slot now and should be going forward, hopefully. We were on Thursday, and Thursday was a challenge for the Rangers that coming night. They had the Boston Bruins, who at the time were 9-1 coming to town. And the Rangers lost the game. You could take some positives from the game on Thursday, I guess, but overall, you'd be disappointed in what you saw.
Yeah.
And the Rangers then had 3 days off and returned to Madison Square Garden on Sunday night in a weird slot. Like, it was a 5:00 game, which is a weird time for an NHL game. And it also was weird because we moved the clocks back an hour, like a day before. So the Rangers play a Detroit team that's on a back-to-back. Detroit had played the day before in Detroit. And the Rangers in the first period, behind goals from Capo Caco and Mika Zibanejad, looked like they'd come to play and were going to off and sailing, and decided, as usual, which has been the thing here in the first couple of weeks, to not play a complete game and find a way to lose in overtime. They lost on a power play goal in overtime. And we can get into was the call on Keandre Miller in overtime and the right penalty call. I mean, it probably was in my eyes, but you shouldn't even be in a position where that game is even that close. So a lot of problems here in Ranger land. And we put a poll up on our Instagram page yesterday, and I have to say how surprised I was. We put a poll up yesterday morning. Are you concerned? Simple yes or no. Yes, I think the Rangers are, and I don't say trouble, but there's some reason to be concerned. And some people, then the answer to no is no, I'm not. And it was all day as people were voting throughout. It was completely split, and it ended 48% of people are concerned and 52% of people are not concerned. So really, it is a 50-50 split. We're going to try now today to kind of go a little bit deeper here and determine whether the answer to that question, and I'm not definitively sure which one I would have voted for, but we're going to go through that. Jonny Lazarus, you know him from NHL Network, is going to be on here in a little while, and we will talk with him. But let's start here. So one of the things that came out of Sunday night's game was that Chris Kreider, who scored over 50 goals last year, right? The Chris Kreider was demoted in the game to the fourth line, which, if you're a casual, because I see your face, if you are a casual hockey fan, that is the lowest possible line you could be put on. Obviously, top players that score over 50 goals are first-line players. Chris Kreider was switched to the fourth line, and when the coach, Gerard Gallant, was asked about it after the game, and of course he's going to be asked about it, right? If you put a guy that had 50 goals about 6 months ago on your bottom line, people want to know why. And all Gerard Gallant said was, well, you know what? He deserves to be there. And he probably is right. However, if you listen to this show, and if you listen to the show since its infancy, right? That makes sense. Infancy days.
I'm coming up on that date.
Yeah. If you have listened to this show before Chris Kreider scored 53 goals last year, I myself have never been a huge Chris Kreider fan. I'm not a Chris Kreider hater, but I'm not a Chris Kreider fan like a lot of people are. Like, you'll never see me at the Garden wearing a number 20 jersey. I have other jerseys. One of them does not say Chris Kreider.
We're not getting him on the show anytime soon.
No, we're not. But I'm going to stick up for the guy, and here's why. I did some math last night.
Okay.
Because I wanted to see. Now, Chris Kreider has 10 points in 13 games. Okay. So if I did the math and I said this is, and he has 4 goals, where is he going to end up if he plays at this pace after 82 games? How many goals is he going to end up with?
82, 4, I'd say about 35.
No, 24.
That's close.
If things were to stay, and again, this is a player who's streaky, so he'll get hot and he'll get 6 in a week somewhere, but then he'll disappear for 3 weeks. So if he scores 24 goals this season, right? Even let's say he scores between 20 and 25. You know what you have? You have the Chris Kreider that he's always been, except for last season. How does anybody sit here and be surprised at it? Now, did I like to see him on the 4th line? No. However, again, another thing that I have preached on this platform that we have here, thankfully, is that Alexis Lafreniere needs at some point to be put on the first goddamn line after 3 years. If Chris Kreider is going to get relegated from the top to the 4th line on the left wing, what slot does that open up on the first line, Dougie Sticks?
I think that looks the left wing. Open.
Thank you. What position does Alexis Lafreniere play?
Sounds like it's the left wing.
It is. Now, yesterday, there was a report, and we'll find out tonight if this is true, that yesterday in practice, when they were practicing lines, they took Artemi Panarin, who I love. Look, I love Panarin. Don't even get me started. I'll talk about how great of a free agent signing he was on July 1st, 2019 for hours. I can do that. Okay. They're taking Artemi Panarin, it looks like, from the second line left wing, where he's been producing points with Vincent Trocheck, right? And moving him to the first line. I'm telling you tonight, if when I watch this game, that is what ends up happening. I'm really going, and I don't get angry a lot. Like, I was angry to the point on Sunday night when they lost in overtime that I may have said a couple things that probably should have been said in front of my kids who were watching the game and they thought it was funny, but that's a story for another day. Or maybe it's not a story for another day. We shouldn't talk about that. But we've been waiting for the opportunity to open, or a door to open that would make sense for Alexis Lafreniere to finally go to the top line. God damn it. Why is it not now? What is going to have to happen?
What? All right. So just for the, the people, the laymen's out there, right? How come he didn't go from the first line to the second line? Like, don't you want your lines to be balanced? So like, if Panarin's working well with someone else on the second line, you don't want to mess up that juju.
Yes, I'm agreeing with you. Panarin has done okay with Vincent Trocheck. So if he's done okay with Vincent Trocheck, why now am I moving Panarin to the first line? Can we take Alexis Lafreniere and finally see, like, can we, even if it's, I don't know, a 3 to 5 game experiment, and say, you know what, let's put him up on the top line with Mika Zibanejad and Capo. And Kako, by the way, and it's not on our topics here to talk about today, has been pretty darn good. So why not give Lafreniere the opportunity?
Who's on the third line right now?
Yes, Lafreniere's on the third line. Playing with Filipino, again, I'm not a fan of him if he's even in the lineup, and he's hurt half the time. When does he get the opportunity? How is it not now?
So is he moving up?
I see there's comments, but I just can't see.
Is he going to be on the second line now, taking Panarin's spot? Is that what's happening? They're all just...
That was what was reported at practice yesterday, that they were practicing the lines. That doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. However, tonight, I will be intrigued at face-off to see the line combinations before the game even happens, because they're at home tonight versus the Islanders. And if you follow the Mind Your Puckin' Business Instagram page, there is a story up there that went up about like 10 minutes before we went live about Ranger Islander fans, like outside the game. It's 30 seconds long. It'll put a smile on your face. You should check it out. But again, so what else is going on with the Rangers? That's one thing. The other thing that I'm starting to see here be an issue is that maybe there was a mistake in the front office with Chris Drury, or maybe it goes back to Jeff Gordon, someone. They don't have a true right wing. Capo Caco, in my eyes, has exceeded my expectations, but the bar wasn't set extraordinarily high. So is he playing as a top-line right wing? Would he be a top-line right wing on a lot of other NHL clubs? The answer to that is probably no, he would not. But he's been okay here. But I think there's a glaring problem that we don't have a top-line right wing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like so you got to give the people what they want.
Well,
You got to give the people what they want.
But here's my thing that I don't want to say, and I debated, but I'm going to say it. Okay.
Yes.
Back in March of 2021, right? So we're now going back more than a year and a half, more than a year and a half, like 20 months ago.
Yeah.
We were on our regular spot, and David Quinn, then coach of the Rangers, was battling Corona. An NHL protocol at the time, because Corona changes all the time, was you're out for 2 weeks. So the Rangers sent in their my coach and assistant coach from Hartford, or not the assistant coach, the coach from Hartford comes up, and the Rangers go on a run. And for me and a lot of other Ranger fans, it was like, look, they're playing better without David Quinn. I said, I want to get Gerard Gallant.
Mm-hmm.
He had been fired by Vegas. I wanted Gerard Gallant. I had seen enough. What happens 3 months later? Chris Drury takes over for Jeff Gordon. Chris Drury then proceeds to get rid of David Quinn. And there was talk at the time that he may not do that. So it wasn't even like it was a slam dunk move like everyone knew it was coming.
Mm-hmm.
And what does he do? He makes the right move and gets Gerard Gallant. You and I coined a term. You, I believe, if I remember, said that everywhere Gerard Gallant has gone, in his first year, his team has improved exponentially in the standings. You coined the term, the Gerard. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, the Gerard Gallant
bump, the pregnancy bump,
yes.
Right? It's the first year you grow, you do well.
Yes.
Well, now, as you're going through this, because your wife is expecting,
you got a bump.
When you have a bump, the bump goes away, right? The bump doesn't last forever. And I had a discussion with someone yesterday.
Yeah.
And it said, and he brought up a very good point, but it's been discussed before.
Okay.
How has Gerard Gallant done in his second years of places? In Vegas, where he went to the Stanley Cup final in year one in 2018, which might be one of the greatest coaching stories ever. You had a expansion franchise with an expansion roster in a very competitive Western Conference in a city that you were at that time, because the Raiders weren't there yet, the only professional sports team in town. And you took that team to the Stanley Cup final is incredible. And then a year later, he's out, and he was out with a winning record, if I remember correct. They were on a road trip, and they fired him. So I don't know if there's something here that maybe goes on with Gerard Gallant in the second year, and maybe it's too early to say that on November 8th. I get it. I'm not sounding it as a red alarm. I'm just saying that there's something here that needs to be watched. If you could put up the comment that just came in, and I was going to say it a couple minutes ago when we were talking about the right wing. There is a top-line right wing out there, Patrick Kane, who is a Hall of Famer who still plays in Chicago. Now, he's on the backside of his career, and there have been rumors for the last month, or not last month, maybe even year, that he's going to get traded out of Chicago at some point. And it would make sense for Chicago to trade him. They don't need to hold on to him. He would make sense on the right wing for the Rangers. Now, does Chris Drury want to sit there and pay the price that it's going to take to get Patrick Kane? That I don't know. But the longer that this continues, and it hasn't continued that long, because I'm not on the panic side of everything right now. But the longer that this continues, it's going to force Chris Drury's hand to at least make that phone call.
So we have a right wing issue. We have too many left wings. We don't have enough right wings.
There you go. Right. So this team is is heavy on the left wing. You have Chris Kreider, Artemi Panarin, and you also have Alexis Lafreniere.
Yes.
Now, look, I want all three of those guys on my team. I'm not saying that get rid of them, but there's just not places for them. And now, if Chris Kreider is going to get demoted, and I would guess tonight he's on the third line, can we please take Alexis Lafreniere and move him from the third line to the top line instead of moving Panarin up where he's been actually playing well?
Yeah, if he's playing well, why would you mess up their chemistry?
Why?
Plus, Stones is the first and the second line. They play moderately the same. It's a like 50-50 split. Maybe third line gets a little.
Right. Now, there's also issues with the top line where Mika Zibanejad has 1 goal at 5-on-5 this year. That's a concern.
Okay.
To which you could argue, well, Mika Zibanejad is historically a slow starter, and he is. and we're still in the beginning of the season. But I don't know that I would sit here and bet my mortgage that all of a sudden he's going to be like every other year.
Yeah.
At some point, that's going to run out.
And would it hurt your ego as Panarin to have Lafreniere in the first line,
No.
right? Because first and second line are playing a lot of
Right.
lot of
Panarin
time.
wouldn't care. And if I'm Artemi Panarin and I'm producing at the points pace that I'm producing more than a point per game right now on the second line, why do I want to move?
Yeah.
Just leave me there.
Yeah.
I'm playing well with Trocheck at center.
Give it a shot first. If it doesn't work out, then maybe you make the move.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to go back to the Rangers, so stay tuned in a couple of minutes when Jonny Lazarus comes on. We had a couple people write in last week.
Yeah.
And I got to mention someone who was a guest on our show who wanted us to cover the Devils. And it's a little painful for me to do it because there is no professional sports team out there that I dislike more than the New Jersey Devils. It used to be a split between the Devils and the Red Sox growing up. Like, I hated them equally. And the Patriots were in there from time, but the Devils are just consistently at the top of my list. But we've got to cover them.
Bro, it's the only team we have in Jersey.
Okay. Enough with that nonsense. I hate when people say that. It's true, but I just don't like when people say it. So, all right. The Devils.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, Paul Farrington is on the show, right? Talking his stuff. And he comes on and he's talking about his football. And he says, I want to talk about the Devils for a minute. Now, we didn't even know that he was a Devil fan. I didn't even know he followed hockey.
Yeah.
You need to go, because he had sent me this the other day. He says in the clip with us that the Devils were about to go on this streak or this run. I mean, there was no data to support that except being a homer. But the dude was exactly right, because the Devils now are leading the Metropolitan Division still, and swept through their Western Canada road trip this past week out in Vancouver. They came back down 2 in the third, or down 2 to Edmonton on the road, which is highly impressive. And then they came back and won in overtime to end in Calgary the other night. So give the Devils credit. A player in the league, and I'll ask Jonny Lazarus because I see he's coming on in a couple minutes, but an underrated player that I don't think a lot of people know about, and if they're not paying attention to him now, is Jesper Bratt, because this guy is having a heck of a year. He's 12 games, he's got 17 points. He set the Devils record for most points, I think, to start a season. The first game he didn't have a point in was Saturday night, I believe, in Calgary. And over there, you've got guys like that you would more of the household names, the Jack Hugheses of the world and Nico Hischier, that are averaging a point a game. I mean, if you're the Devils, and this is why people wrote in and wanted us to talk about them, which I'm going to do that if that's what they want, you've got to be happy. Now, the Devils get some bad news yesterday. They didn't play, but Mackenzie Blackwood is going to be out now for a while. You never want to see players injured in any sport, right?
Yeah.
I don't ever want that. However, if I'm going to try and find the bright side of that for the Devils, when we were preparing to do the show before that was announced yesterday, their better goalie to me is Vanacek, the guy they got from Washington, who's 5-1, has got a 2.21 goals against the average. This is going to give him a chance now, because Blackwood's not there, to be a number one goaltender, even though Bernier is going to come back. So if you're the Devils, you're literally red hot. You're now going to have to rely on probably your better goalie, and you're coming back home. I mean, look, you've got to give Tom Fitzgerald and Lindy Ruff credit. Now, the one negative thing, I said this to someone, I said it last night at my hockey game, and someone was like, yeah, but it was probably the wrong thing to say. The one negative you take from this, if you're a Devil fan, is this is probably going to make Lindy Ruff keep his job, right? I mean, there were Devil fans that were calling for the guy's head. But the Devils are now 9-3, so Lindy Ruff is not going anywhere anytime soon. But give the Devils credit. I mean, they come back home. They played well. They've actually beaten some really good teams as well. They beat the Avalanche at home a week and a half ago. They shut them out, actually. I mean, with that offense there with McKinnon and Makar on defense, I mean, that's certainly not easy to do. The Devils are playing well. Do they keep this pace up? No, but I do think that they will be competitive for a playoff spot, for sure.
My brother just texted me. He's taking me the game on Thursday. So
who are they playing?
Ottawa Senators.
Should be a win. Right?
They're not any good. Senators
no, the Senators are okay. They're better than people think. But if you're going to be a team that thinks you're going to go somewhere, when you play the Senators at home and you're red hot, you've got to win that game.
All right.
I'm saying it like
good. I'm going to see a win.
Good. Well, I don't want to see a win for you, but you can let me know. We're going to go back to Ranger panic mode over here. That we're just going in. We're going to bring in Jonny Lazarus, our good man over there. How are you, Johnny?
I'm good. I'm actually enjoying all the Devils talk that you guys are going with, because I just wrote about them for my article for Action Network tonight, and I'm just gonna say I'm a little embarrassed I didn't make my bed this morning. But the Devils, man, they're it's not a fluke. It's really not. Like, if you look into the numbers, They're out shooting every opponent almost 2-1 every night. They have like the highest expected goals in the league. They get almost 40 shots a night. They're honestly a really good team, and they're fun to watch. They're fast. They're skilled.
Yeah.
Vanacek, to your point before, playing amazing. Like, they're scary. They're really good.
They're scary. And the Rangers actually, like this weird scheduling quirk, have them twice coming up right after Thanksgiving at home, like 2 weeks apart on a Monday. Like 2 out of 3 Mondays, the Devils come to the Garden. What's weird about the Devils, and I don't know them well enough, like I know the Rangers, is their roster is not tremendously different, but they got rid of Mark Recchi, who everyone was screaming about, as their assistant coach, and they bring in Andrew Brunette, who had a lot of success in Florida, and really didn't deserve to be fired. I mean, I don't know if he's making that much of a difference, but you're right. Their system is different. They're fast. They're shooting the puck. And if you remember the Devils when they were good in the 90s and the 2000s, they were just totally a defensive team. So, yeah, I mean, I give them credit. We'll see what happens over there. But all right, let me ask you some Ranger questions, because we put up a poll. I don't know if you saw it. Is it time to panic? And it was really an even split. It was 48% saying yes and 52% saying no. I think I lean more in the no side, but I'm going to go over a couple of the issues. Chris Kreider, 50 goals, over 50 goals last year. We knew this wasn't going to continue. It was not going to happen again. However, to be sent down to the fourth line in the middle of a game is kind of telling. What do you make of the Kreider situation?
Listen, I think everything that came out yesterday, interviews, press conferences, quote-wise, like Kreider's the first one that's going to be accountable on himself. He even said, like, I'm not playing great. Like, I'm not playing bad. I'm going to keep doing the same things I'm doing. I'm getting the chances. They're just not going in. So, and all the numbers back that up. Like, Kreider is getting the third most chances or sixth most chances. I'm mixing up maybe him and Mika in the NHL. Like, literally him and Mika are third and sixth for expected goals. So Kreider is not doing anything necessarily so different than last year. The pucks just aren't going in for him. And that happens a lot in hockey. Like, we've seen it firsthand with Mika Zibanejad. Mika got off to a really slow start last year, or was it 2 years ago, and then picked it up and scored almost 40 goals. So, like, these things do happen, and they happen often, like more than people think. So the panic button thing to me is so annoying. I'm not hitting the panic button until they're down 3-2 in a series to Tampa. That's when I'll panic, because that's when their season could be over. We're talking about November right now, and I have people asking me trade deadline questions. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this thing could turn around next week. Like, it's not, hockey's an 82 game season. They got 4 games this week. Like, they're beating. Well, I guess not beating every bad team convincingly. The game against Arizona was pretty close. The game against Philly was pretty close, but they dominated those games. The pucks just weren't going in, and they will eventually. It's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually.
Yeah, I wouldn't panic either. I mean, I would look at it and just say that there are just certain red flags right now that maybe you want to look at or draw your attention. I mean, I think there are some things. So to me, yesterday it was tweeted from the Ranger practice that it looked like they were putting Panarin up on the top line. Today was Zibanejad, moving him from the second left wing to the first left wing. I don't understand this for a couple of reasons. Maybe you can explain it to me. One, Panarin has done pretty well with Trocheck. He's averaging over a point a game. So I don't know why I'm messing with that chemistry. But secondly, when is Alexis Lafreniere going to get an opportunity on this team? If you're then going to take out the top line right wing, which is Chris Kreider, which I'm fine with. I don't mind moving him down to the third line. How is it not Lafreniere? Why is it Panarin if that's what's going to happen?
It's a good question. It's one that I don't necessarily know if I have the answer to, because, I talked about this last night on my podcast episode. I would like to see the kid line back together right now. I think you need a little bit of spark, and, they've been constant every time they play together. They've proven it. If I'm Gerard Gallant, which I'm not, and, quite frankly, I wouldn't want to be with the amount of Ranger fans that complain all the time. I'm starting that kid line tonight to set the tone against the Islanders. They play well together. They appear to be a little more confident when they're together, although Kakko has been outstanding. I think, Ryan Mead, I don't know if you guys follow Ryan Mead. He tweeted out yesterday, I think, the top 5 Rangers, if you kind of just break down the first couple games. And I said to him, I was like, if you don't look at statistics, if you're just watching hockey and statistics don't matter, which obviously they do, but in this scenario, if you're just watching off the eye test, I think Kakko's been the 3rd best player on the team all year consistently.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree.
Only behind Panarin and, I kind of want to say Igor. But you can make the case for Mika, but Mika at 5-5 still hasn't scored a goal. And Panarin, honestly, hasn't been as good as Kakko has been defensively. But back to your point about Lafreniere, it's hard because the natural left side, he's competing against Kreider and Panarin. Like, it's, if he's on any other team, he's a first line left winger. It's just he's going up against two guys that happen to be, solidified top 6 scorers. So, a part of me feels bad for him in a sense, but at the same time, like, I'm sure he'd much rather be where he is right now on a team that's, built to win a Stanley Cup than, playing in Anaheim or playing in Arizona, getting top line minutes. So, I think the opportunity for him will come. They're going to have to make a lot of line shuffles, which they're doing now, because when the pucks aren't going in, you just got to shake things up. So, hopefully it works out in his favor. But if the team's winning games, I think he'd be the first one to tell you that he's totally fine with that.
Are we seeing, and I don't think you were here yet. It was right before you came in the waiting room. Are we seeing now an issue come to life where the front office never really addressed the last couple of years of right wing, right? This team is so left wing heavy with Kreider, Lafreniere, Panarin. And again, Kakko's done well on the first slot right wing, but he's probably on most teams. He wouldn't be playing on the top line right wing if he was on their team. Are we seeing a lack of attention that was given that should have been to addressing the right wing situation on this team?
So I'm just trying to think back. So we had Buchnevich, traded him away. He was a first line right winger for sure. I'm trying to think like 2-3 years back. Before Buchnevich, who was like the first line right winger? I'm seriously drawing a blank right now.
Yeah. But the fact that we can't remember it, and it hasn't been in recent years where we've had opportunities. And again, you want Kreider, Lafreniere, and Panarin all on your team. They're good players, but it just seems that we're so, like, it's a seesaw, right? We're so weighted on the left, and you have so many options, but on the right, we're putting Kakko on the top line.
Yeah, we're almost forcing guys to play out of their position.
Well, exactly, because you're so left wing heavy. Vitaly Kravtsov, I was high on the guy. I thought he was going to have a good year. Can't stay healthy. Zuccarello, thank you. Someone just wrote in, Chris. Thank you. Matt Zuccarello was the answer to that. So Vitaly Kravtsov cannot stay healthy right now. Granted, both injuries kind of got crushed, but is there? Are we seeing a player, as we've seen in the NHL over the past, a couple of years with other players, that just can't stay healthy? Or are we going to see kind of him come back, maybe get a stretch of some healthy games and be productive? What do you think?
So I don't think it's a can't stay healthy issue. Like, those things kind of happen when guys have like bad knees or hips or those kind of issues that you can't really just avoid. His injuries have been avoidable. He's putting himself in situations where he's getting smoked. And like, so many people, and I forgot who, someone was in my Twitter mentions that actually made a great point. Like, Ranger fans, if Kravtsov doesn't go in there and play aggressive, oh, he's too soft. But if he does, now he's too soft because he gets hurt. So it's kind of a lose-lose for him, right? Where if he doesn't put himself in the situation, he's not tough enough, but he is putting himself in the situation, and now he's getting hurt. So I think, Gerard Gallant talked about it last week. He's got to be a little bit smarter just on, where he puts himself, putting his body on the line in certain areas. Like, him going against Victor Hedman in a board battle, he's probably not going to come out of that on top most times. So, I think it's just picking your spots, right? And that's such a cliche thing to say, but it's so true. Like, sometimes you don't necessarily need to win that puck race if it's going to put you in a dangerous position. You can go and kind of contain and angle a certain way to force the puck a certain direction instead of putting your body on the line in front of it. But, then again, like, I don't know what his deal is as far as staying healthy and all that stuff, because I think he's just going to continue to try and prove himself. So I don't know if he's going to avoid those situations as much as we think he might. But only time will tell. But I don't think he's like injury prone, because these injuries have been avoidable. So to answer your question.
All right, last question for you. It's one I don't really want to ask you because I don't think it's fair, but I'm going to ask you. Halak, right? Well, it's not terrible. Has not won a game. He has not gotten a lot of goal support, which is not his fault. But I know that when another backup goalie was here in the past couple of years, in the 4 games he would have played, or 5, whatever it is, it wouldn't be 0-4 or 0-5. Is there any regret, or do you think the front office is sitting there saying maybe we should have addressed him? Like, I mean, I would almost rather Keith Kincaid at this point, although he wasn't bad in the Detroit game, I guess. Is there any sense that maybe backup goaltending is an issue, or is it he's just not getting a lot of support? The wins will come when the goals come.
I don't think. I mean, look, it's important to have a good 1-2 punch, and I think that's something that's been so successful for Boston right now as well. Linus Ullmark's been outstanding, but Jeremy Swayman, I know he's injured at the moment, but he's a one. That's a 1A 1B situation. And that's huge too, because you want to be able to rely on both guys. But you can definitely argue that Halak has played very strong in 2 games, and that's the Winnipeg game and the Detroit game. And in both those games, the Rangers just couldn't put the pucks in the back of the net. Like, the Winnipeg game, it's a 1-1 game with 5 minutes left. There's a puck battle in front of the net. The Rangers don't pick up their guys in front, and Sam Gagner bangs home a backhand rebound to give the Jets a 2-1 lead. But, the Rangers are right in that game with 5 minutes to go. Halak kind of did all you can ask for, from a backup goalie in that situation. And then you look at the Detroit game, which I actually didn't watch fully. I was doing marathon stuff all day, so I kind of just caught the highlights. But, from what I've gathered from everyone else, I'm not going to form my own opinion on it because I don't have one. Halak was left out to dry, apparently. So, I don't want to talk too much on that because I didn't watch it myself. But, those are 2 games right there that are winnable games for your backup goalie that you just couldn't find a way to do it. And, like we say, and one of the bigger hockey cliches there is good teams find a way to win. So right now, maybe they aren't the good team we think they're going to be. But like I said, it's November. If this is happening in February, March, that's when the panic button questions start to come out, I think. But happening in November, they're going to figure it out. Like we talked about all summer, you've given a lot of responsibility, Lafreniere, a lot to Hedl, a lot to Kakko now. All these young kids who are, under the age of 24, stepping into these big, important roles that they haven't been in before. And it's going to take some time for them to figure it out. I mean, it's kind of taken a lot of younger guys. Look at Jack Hughes, who's playing so well right now. It took him time to figure it out. Sorry about all the honking going on right now. I don't know if you guys hear that. But sometimes everyone develops at a different stage.
And you and I, also you and I, in the preseason, when we talked about this, we didn't expect this to be a 110-point team again, right? So we did expect, you and I were on the same page, that they were going to regress a little bit. Regress not to the point where you're out of the playoffs, but, regress a little bit. So, well, thank you as always. I should also mention, you can see Johnny now on Bleacher Report Open Ice. That's a new thing for you, right? Since you've been on.
Appreciate
Very
that.
cool. Really cool. I like the stuff. So you can check Johnny there. That is our good man, Jonny Lazarus. Thanks for joining us, Johnny.
Thank you guys for having me. And sorry, the past couple of weeks I haven't been able to hop on, but I'm more than happy to hop on whenever.
You got it. We'll see you soon. We're back on Tuesdays now, I think, for the most part, so we should be good to go. Thanks, Johnny.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
So that is Johnny. And now the Rangers, like I said, tonight they'll be at home versus the Islanders. They then go on the road for a quick 2-game trip to Detroit and Nashville, and then return home against Arizona on Sunday. So when we're on next week, we will have a better read on that poll question, because you've played 4 games and you've played, the Islanders, you played terrible last time you played them. Detroit just beat you the other night. So you're going to have 2 games against 2 teams that you can, I don't want to say redemption, but you should be kind of fired up to play. The Islanders tonight are coming off a back-to-back. They played last night versus Calgary. And then you also, over the weekend, you go to a Nashville, who's a winnable game, and then you come home against one of the worst teams in the league in Arizona. And as I used your example when you're going to see the Devils versus Ottawa, if you're going to be a good team and you have a bad team coming into your building, you got to win those games. You got to find a way to get 2 points. Yeah. So we will have a better read on that, but don't panic yet, Ranger Nation.
And you'll have your new lines.
Don't even. All right. Shifting gears to the NFL. I am highly annoyed, like to the point where I'm going to tell you what happened, and it's going to sound like crying and whining, and it's not, because it's factual. But so in our picks last week, right, we had 5 games as always. We had 1 game wrong. We had the Panthers plus 7.5 at the Bengals, which was completely wrong. We had 2 games right. We had the Lions plus 3.5 at home versus the Packers. They won the game outright. We had the Jaguars plus 1.5 at home versus the Raiders. They won the game outright, right? So we were 2-1 with 2 to go. The Vikings, Paul Farrington's Vikings, were minus 3.5 at the Commanders. They were tied with like a minute and a half left with 1st and goal at the 2. I felt like, and I understand the strategy, Paul can come on and tell me if I'm right, because I wasn't watching it, but I was following it on my phone. That they almost weren't trying to score. They settled for the field goal, and we had him at -3. It was -3.5, so we missed by half a point. Then So now we needed our 4:00 game to hit. That was our depending factor. We had the Rams plus 2.5 in Tampa. The Rams were up by 4 with 50 seconds left kicking the ball. Tom Brady decides, well, this will be the time I do a last minute drive. And we had the Rams plus 2.5 and it was plus 3.
With like 10 seconds.
Yeah. So we lost both of those two games by half a point in bizarre fashion, which means, in fairness, we had a losing week. So we now go to 7-2, which is aggravating because
Pretty
we
good
literally
still.
it's pretty good, but we should have been 8-1. I just needed one of those two things to hit, and they both were in the driver's seat to happen. But such is gambling. You never know. It's not over till it's over. So
I mean, imagine if you've been on the Bills though.
Yes, we should talk about that. The Jet game. I saw a guy last night that I play hockey with, that I'm friendly with, that is a Jet season ticket holder. And this guy and his family, like true season ticket holders, like they go to every game. It doesn't matter how terrible they are. And he was saying to me last night how crazy the crowd was. So it was good to see. Give the Jets credit. Their defense is good.
Yep.
I'm still not sold on Zach Wilson, as I don't think anyone is. But you know what? Going into the bye week now, they go up to Foxborough next week in what will be a very intriguing game. So, and if you're the Bills, and you know that I'm like kind of closet, I root for the Bills.
Yeah.
They came out last night that Josh Allen might be hurt. And his elbow on the last drive. Yeah. And if Josh Allen is hurt, you want to talk about like when you vote for MVP, when you talk about like a player and his value to a team, who's more valuable to their team in the league? Maybe Lamar Jackson's in the discussion than Josh Allen. Because if you take Josh Allen out of the game this week when they're home against Minnesota, which is a great game if he's in, they're not even favorites. They opened as like a 7.5 point favorite. They would be underdogs. I mean, that's how much Josh Allen's value is to that team.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But yeah, congratulations. You were not there, right?
I was not there.
What would it be like to have a Sunday without you at MetLife?
I don't know. I was not there. Should have went.
Yes. All right. So these are your week number 10 picks for Mind Your Puckin' Business podcast. I like the Bucks -1 at home versus the Seahawks. The Seahawks, one of the better stories of the season. Geno Smith, a great story of the season as well. However, the Bucks, if you're already leading, you're still leading that division. You got to win this game at home. Seahawks got to come cross country in a diagonal route too, like from the northwest to the southeast. Tom Brady, give me the Bucks -1. Give me the Titans -2 at home versus the Broncos. The Broncos are not good. I'm convinced this is not the Russell Wilson we saw in previous years. The Titans need to win. They lost the other night in Kansas City. Derrick Henry's having quietly a very good year. Give me the Titans -2 at home versus Denver. Give me the Chiefs -9 at home versus the Jaguars. This is the sort of game that if we don't have, and we see this with the Chiefs sometimes, their offense just struggles to get going sometimes, occasionally. If this is a game where the offense gets going, Jacksonville cannot even hang with them. I'm taking the Chiefs here -9 at home versus the Jaguars. Don't kill me on this pick. Don't get upset. But I'm taking the Texans +7 at home versus the Giants. I'm sorry, at the Giants. Texans +7 at MetLife. I think the Giants will win. The Giants, though, if you look at the way they've won this year, they don't blow anyone out. And Houston was competitive last week with the Eagles. They were tied at the half. So give me the Texans +7 at MetLife. The last one, I like this game a lot. Give me the Chargers +7 at the 49ers. The Chargers are kind of Jekyll and Hyde team. Some weeks they show up, some weeks they don't. This is a in-state game. They need to win if you look at the standings in the AFC West. Give me the Chargers, and I'm getting coverage by +7. Give me the Chargers +7 at the 49ers. Those are your week number 10, believe it or not, picks.
Wow.
Crazy,
Flying
right?
By.
Always.
Flying by.
The NFL season goes faster than any season there is.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah.
And my headphones here are like screwing up. So if you hear me talking, it's a little loud. All right. I'm going to give you the floor.
Oh, yeah?
Because you want to talk about something that's bothering you. And we're not going to spend too much time on it because we have a couple minutes.
Start with it. We're going to end with it.
No, I don't want to start with it because that's, by now some people have tuned off because we've gone away from the Rangers, which I don't blame them. So what's on your mind today?
So I should be $1.9 billion richer, but it seems to me that the lottery is rigged because we had a delay and they're waiting to make sure they have all the numbers in so they can pick the ones that no one chose. That's what it seems like to me. That's what I'm smelling here. Like we decided to not have the drawing for 1.9 billion because we didn't know what every single person chose.
Well, I think it is a security issue where if I understand what I read, and again, I'm not an expert on this,
Yes.
that, and it would make sense, every state must report, here are the combinations our players in our state have, so they would know if somebody won. I
Okay.
believe there was some reporting issue. Now, I don't think, unless it's changed this morning, they said, okay, well, the drawing will be now this day, unless they just roll it over into tomorrow night. That was probably what they'll do. So it gives you some extra
So
time.
maybe someone won.
So you can put on
We
that.
want to put that one up.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
You can put it up, and it sounds like the election today. If you're listening to us live and not on repeat, is election day. I don't do politics. I just don't do it at all.
No.
But I encourage you to go out and vote.
Maybe this is a distraction, so
Maybe.
we could pull some shenanigans at the voting ballots here.
It could be, but well, that is it for us today.
Yeah.
The Rangers, like I said, 4 games this week. The Islanders tonight at home. They then go to Detroit and Nashville and return home on Sunday night at the Garden against the Arizona Coyotes. You'll get a better read here in the next week. Like I said, some of these issues. I'm curious to see, where does Chris Kreider go to play now? Where is Panarin really moving to the first line? There's some little kind of like minor situations like that you want to keep your eye on. And also, thank you, Minor Bucket Business, the Bamboozle Project, as always, for their sponsorship. You can check them out. You can use their promo code MYPB. As the weather gets colder here in the Northeast this morning, coincidentally,
Yes.
it is a perfect time to buy that winter hat, which I promise you is the world's most comfortable winter hat you will ever have. That's it for us from here. Thanks for listening, and we will talk to you, as always, next week.